You're good at doing the housework, aren't you? Well then, I'll leave it to you. Take care of it as you usually do.
Saying this, the sister-in-law went out again triumphantly. The room was a mess of clothes that my sister-in-law had taken off and rubbish that was left out. The kitchen was also left with a lot of dirty dishes and cups with an off odor. How could she make such a mess in just a few days since the last cleaning? My nephew, who was left alone by my sister-in-law, looked at the ground sadly, grabbing the hem of my clothes, when I got a faraway look. I hugged him and thought that I would make her go through hell and back one day. My name is Taylor. I am 25 years old and work as a housekeeper, doing homemaker services. When you hear the word housekeeper, you might think of old TV dramas and imagine a middle-aged woman who works in a rich people's family. In fact, when I tell my friends and acquaintances about my job, they are often surprised and say, Some people, who don't hold back on their words, say things like, "Why do you work as a housekeeper? There are plenty of other jobs out there." But I've been good at housework since I was a kid, and if I can make people happy by doing housework, it also makes me happy. For me, being a housekeeper was an ideal job. Actually, housekeepers are in high demand these days. Surprisingly, a large number of elderly households, dual-income households and single households also hire housekeepers because they want to have someone clean their house or eat food prepared by someone else. My family was a bit confused when I told them I would be a housekeeper. Now they see me enjoying my job, they cheer me up and say, "Good luck with your job." Nevertheless, some people still have bias against the profession of housekeepers. I have an older brother who is married and has a 2-year-old child. I have a good relationship with my brother and we get on well enough to go out together sometimes. But I couldn't have a positive feeling for my sister-in-law, Rita. Because she made fun of my job when we first met in the absence of our family.
Aren't housekeepers supposed to be a job for middle-aged women these days? It's very strange to be in a profession where other people walk over you. I don't understand it at all.
When she said that, I almost had a strained look on my face. I don't mean I want people to understand my profession, but I don't want someone I've never met to make fun of me. I thought about telling my brother, but he was very much in love with Rita and very happy that they could get married. I didn't want to be a buzzkill about such a thing, so I kept quiet. Instead, I tried to stay away from her as much as possible. Although I wanted to get along with her as she was my brother's wife, there was no need to force myself to get along with her as her view is 180 degrees opposite from my view. In the meantime, my nephew was born between my brother and his wife. One day I was told to come to their apartment.
Could you do me a favor?
To be honest, I didn't want to go there as it was my day off. However, I thought it'd be a hassle if I refused, so I went there reluctantly. My brother seemed to be on a business trip. When I went into their room, I was stunned by what I saw. It was so messy with all sorts of rubbish and clothes thrown onto the floor that I couldn't take one step without stepping on something. Maybe because of the large amount of rubbish, the room is full of the smell of foods and drinks, which makes me feel sick just being in the room. Some of the rubbish is in rubbish bags, but some of the bags are torn in places and others are leaking some kind of liquid. Large cardboard boxes for items bought by mail order are also left as they are, making the room smaller. The kitchen sink was full of cups and dishes that had been left dirty. When my jaw hit the floor, Rita lightly asked me to clean up.
You're a housekeeper, so you're good at housework, right? Can you do it for free, as you are my family? I'm going out as I have something to do. Make sure it's done perfectly by the evening or so.
Rita said something very pushy, and it left me open-mouthed. She was trying to get me to clean such a dirty room for free, and even put a time limit on it. I don't get it. She's a full-time housewife, so she should just do something about it herself. Besides, she had made fun of my job, so why would she think I would willingly accept her favor just because we're family? I had too much to say. On the contrary, I didn't know what to say to her. I had no choice but to be silent towards her. But Rita's selfishness didn't end there. She even forced me to take care of my 2-year-old nephew. This makes me really impatient. I don't mean I don't like children, but the only child I've ever dealt with is a relative's child in the 5th grade. I've never looked after a toddler before, and I wasn't joking about being able to leave him with me. I thought it would be impossible to take responsibility if something happened, so I tried to avoid taking care of my nephew as much as possible. It's impossible. I'm a housekeeper, not a babysitter. Please hire a babysitter or put him in daycare, I told her, but she wouldn't listen.
It's almost the same thing. Babysitters and daycare centers cost money. Why would I?
She brushed off what I said. I tried to refuse Rita's request, but she said,
"If you refuse, I'll divorce my husband. I'll tell him it's your fault."
She used my brother to threaten me. I didn't want to cause trouble for my brother, so I said, I'll do it for just a one-off, and agreed to Rita's request reluctantly. Looking back, I think I made a big mistake by giving in to her request. As it turned out, I was really exhausted. Rubbish was scattered all over the floor. The rubbish in the bins wasn't even separated. Combustible and non-combustible rubbish were put together. I could hear rustly sounds coming from inside the rubbish bags, and when I lifted one of the bags, bugs came out of the bag. It was the worst. I am more tolerant of bugs than most women because of my job, but it's not something I like to see. Colored clothes and white clothes were put together in a laundry basket, and some of them had to be washed by hand. In the kitchen, it had some strain from dirty dishes and cups in the sink. After I cleaned all the dishes, I had to put so much effort into cleaning the sink. Cleaning was hard work, but so was looking after my nephew. He was not a bad boy, but was too much to handle. He would try to touch anything as soon as he saw you that interested him. It was hard to keep an eye on him. He threw himself at me when I was cleaning, hassling me to play together. It was a struggle to calm him down. Still, I managed to get through it all. When Rita came home in the evening, she didn't thank me and instead complained about housework I've done.
Couldn't you have made that place a bit cleaner? When you clean the house, make it sparkle. You're a professional, aren't you? Don't feed children boil-in-bag foods. It's bad for their health. You're supposed to make homemade food for children. Being busy is no excuse.
I was told off even though I did housework on my day off, gaining nothing. I was so frustrated that she complained a lot about it. Besides, this is not my only misfortune. Even though I reminded her that it was only a one-off. Rita frequently made me do housework at their house. She knew when I had my day off, perhaps because he heard it from my brother. She even came to my flat and asked for housework. When I pretended not to be home, she started to growl at me.
"Come out. I know you are there."
I didn't want to disturb the neighbors, so I answered. She dragged me to her house, saying,
"Don't act like a child."
I didn't want to work for free, so I told her a million times to pay me. Each time, she said,
"Why do I have to pay you? No way."
And refused to pay. While I was doing the housework, she was always out somewhere. When I asked her where she was going, she said,
"It's none of your business."
She would not tell me. My nephew gradually got attached to me more than his mother as I looked after him more than she did. He listened to me more than before, so it was much easier for me to do the housework. But Rita didn't seem to be happy with it. She complained to me saying,
"Don't get cocky, you aren't even married."
I was thinking to myself, if that's how you are going to ask, then why don't you just stay with your son? Although I had been thinking about how I could make her go through hell and back, I have no tangible plan. I was wondering what I should do and I found something when I was cleaning her room. A few weeks later, Rita told me.
My husband is coming home tomorrow from a business trip. I want you to finish all the chores around the house perfectly.
I did the housework for her without complaining and left after I made it tidy. The next day, I received an angry phone call from Rita.
That's bullshit. Tell me where you are right now.
I pretended, "What are you talking about?" Then she shouted at me.
Don't play dumb. You're the one who told my husband about my affair, aren't you?
Actually, Rita was having an affair. When I was cleaning her room, I looked for something on her and found evidence of her affair. There was a photo of her with an unknown man with their arms around each other in a drawer. Also many brand name bags and clothes, which looked like presents from him, came out of the closet. Since Rita is a housewife and my brother is an ordinary company employee, there is no way they can buy so many brand name items. I heard that Rita's parents were also ordinary government employees, so it's unlikely that she got them from her family members. I took pictures of all the evidence of her affair and put them back where they were so that they wouldn't be noticed. I also decided to collect evidence that I was being forced to do housework for Rita. I recorded the voice of her threatening me with a voice recorder and stored video footage of her shouting at the intercom camera. Then I contacted my brother and showed him all this data. Apparently, Rita sent photos of the room I cleaned to my brother and told him that she had done all the housework properly, but I told him that she had actually made me do it instead. After hearing the story, my brother got mad and apologized to me many times by saying,
"I'm sorry for not being aware of it."
He was especially angry that she had left his little son in my care while she really got into the affair.
"I didn't mean I didn't trust you or anything like that, Taylor, but if something were to happen, both Taylor and my son would be hurt. She is no longer my wife if she troubles my family like this."
My brother was planning to divorce Rita and get custody of his son. To avoid the sudden visit by Rita again, I have already moved out of the apartment where I lived before. As expected, Rita made a random visit to the apartment where I used to live. She apparently called me as I wasn't there. She asked me to convince my brother not to divorce.
I don't want a divorce. Convince my husband. If you hadn't told him about my affair, we could have been a happy couple forever. Did you hold a grudge against doing housework? How could you ruin someone's home like that? You're out of your mind. Because of you, our children could end up with a single parent. I feel sorry for him. He's going to have a hard time in the future. How could you take responsibility for that?
She kept shouting such selfish things. At first, when she shouted at me, I was scared, but when hearing her distraught voice, I became calm instead. Why does this person say such selfish things? It's something I couldn't never understand. I told her, "I think you and my brother should get divorced, so I won't try to convince him." I also said it was your fault for cheating on him and that it was not my fault that you had to divorce. No sister would hide that from her brother when she found out that her loved brother had been betrayed. Even my nephew would be better off ending up with a single parent, rather than being with his mother who leaves his own son alone at home and cheats on her husband. We'll back him up, so don't worry. In the end, Rita cried out and begged me.
I'll apologize to you properly and pay for all the housework you've done. Please convince him.
But I refused. It took several months because Rita was quite stubborn, but she and my brother were able to get divorced. As for custody, Rita's lack of financial resources and neglecting the child by forcing me to take care of him for a long period of time were considered problematic, so the matter ended up in the hands of her brother. Although I don't like Rita, I thought my nephew was lovely. So I was really relieved when I found out that my brother was able to successfully take custody of the child. My brother collected a good amount of divorce settlement from both Rita and the person she had an affair with. Since Rita wasn't working, she paid the divorce settlement by borrowing money. To my delight, my brother had also collected money from Rita for the work I had done for free. Since my brother goes on business trips a lot, my nephew is basically taken care of by our parents at their home. At first, my nephew looked lonely without his mother, but he lives happily and is looked after by his friendly grandparents. I thought things had finally settled down, but a few weeks later Rita talked to me when I was out. I hadn't seen her for a long time, her face was completely worn out and looked pale, which gave me a shock. Rita tried to marry again to a rich man whom she had an affair with. However, the affair partner wasn't serious about her and was angry that my brother had demanded compensation from him. He simply dumped her. She was cut off by her parents because of the affair and had nowhere to go. She is now living in an old apartment while working multiple part-time jobs to desperately pay off her debts.
I want to get back together with my husband. I'll get down on my knees or whatever to you, but I need you to convince him.
I didn't feel particularly sorry for her even though I saw her being miserable. Rather, it's obvious that she's struggling now because she behaved as she liked. That's what she got. I told her, give up on getting back together with my brother. If you keep bothering us any further, we'll call the police. Then she ran and hurried away. I don't know or care about what happened to her after that. I'm still working hard as a housekeeper with the support of my family.